Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name's Stephen. I'm a traditionally published fantasy author. Today I've got a bit of a mixed bag for you. I've got some couple bits of industry news, just some adaptation things I want to talk about, do a little bit of a roundup of what's been going on with me. I realised I haven't really talked about that much in quite a while really, so I'll just do a quick update on that. And then I've got some section that I'm going to talk about where someone else has made some fantastic claims. Awful claims about traditional publishing that I'm going to get into. So expect salty language when we get to that bit, but before then I'm just going to keep it fairly child friendly for those who are watching with any youngsters, but I will give you warning when we get to that section. So first bit is about TV adaptations. We've seen a lot of talk of this with fantasy books and sci-fi books that are coming to television in the wake of the success of Game of Thrones and of course other shows like The Witcher, comic book adaptations like The Boys, which is doing very well. But people are always saying, why does it always have to be Game of Thrones? What about something new? What about something different? And there are a couple coming. One of them is the Rivers of London TV series based upon the books by Ben Aronovich. Now originally this was optioned in 2019 by Simon Pegg and Nick Frost. Their sort of production company was going to do something with it. For whatever reasons, it's very, very complicated, and I'm sure that it's a long process that I don't really understand much about. It didn't happen. However, it's now been optioned again by someone else, and they're talking about bringing it to TV, which hopefully will happen this time, because it's a fantastic series of books if you haven't read them. It's about a young man who is in the police force in London, and it's part detective series, part urban fantasy, I want to say, but that's kind of playing it down a little bit. Now in most traditional urban fantasy books there's magic on the fringes and there's vampires and werewolves and all these things kind of crawling around. This is more like the world that we have today where magic isn't a thing, but the young man who joins the police force is apprenticed to the only official mage within the Metropolitan Police Force of London, and he starts to realise that there are some things out there, and I think there are 9 books at the moment and a couple of novellas. And so there's a lot of material to pull on, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what they do with this, because I think it could be really, really good. The second adaptation bit of news comes from British fantasy author Anthony Ryan. He has a number of series out. He's got one at the moment with The Prior was the first book, and then The Martyr is the second book. But this is adapting to older trilogies. So these are the Raven's Shadow trilogy and its sequel, The Raven's Blade duology. He's also got a number of short stories set within the same world, and tentatively titled, it probably could change, it's called Queen of Fire, and they're adapting this for TV. Now if you haven't read those books, I'd definitely go recommend them. They're really, really good. Anthony Ryan writes fantastic fantasy books. I'm currently in the middle of the Draconis Memoriam trilogy. I've got The Martyr to read, I've got The Pariah to read, so they're fantastic books. I really think you should check them out before the TV series, because it's always going to be different. It's never going to live up to it. It's always going to be, there's changes and this, that and the other, but go back and read the source material, and then hopefully you'll still enjoy the TV series later whenever it arrives. With all of these things, they announced the adaptation, just like on the previous story, it could fall away and something could happen, or it could come to fruition. We might actually see this on television 2023, 2024 perhaps, realistically, at the earliest. But it's great news, and he announced it on Twitter himself, and now it's all over the kind of industry Hollywood press. So I'm looking forward to that. Something different, something original, again from a different fantasy author. So I'll be watching that whenever it arrives on TV. Right, just for a bit of a quick roundup on what I've been doing actually at the moment. So within the next couple of days, I will be going and signing the special edition hardbacks of The Warrior and the Coward that we produced with the Broken Binding. So I've got 1,000 of the normal special ones to sign and 52 of the really super edition ones that come in a custom slipcase. Those are all gone. Most of the specials are all gone. There's not many left at all, but I will be doing those and signing the lot of them in the next couple of days. And of course, it's going to be the hottest week of the year with record-breaking temperatures. So yeah, fun times to do that, but I am looking forward to it, and I'm dying to see the books in person. They look amazing. I've posted pictures of them online before on previous videos, and you can check them out on, of course, the Broken Binding website. They look so cool. I'm so pleased to actually see my books in a hardback format for the first time in my entire career, so this is fantastic. Then a couple of weeks later, in early August, the paperback edition comes out. This is just the standard normal one. The hardbacks are special, and obviously they'll actually be out and sent out hopefully to readers a couple of days or even a week or so before the paperbacks. But the paperback is out the beginning of August. It's available to order now, ebook, audiobook, and of course paperback. Go and check it out. There's links down below, and Barnes & Noble and Waterstones and Amazon and wherever else you buy your books. Check that out. And that wraps up the duology. It's not a trilogy. That's it. You've got the Coward and the Warrior behind me on my shoulder. And then that's it. All done. And I'm already busy working on something new. I can't really say what it is because the announcement hasn't been made, but that will be coming in the next few months. But before then, I'm going to be doing lots of PR, interviews, blogs. I'm doing some stuff with some booktubers on other channels, so you'll see me cropping up here and there, talking about this and the series, the inspiration, and just kind of all of what it meant to me and where it came from. And one of the worst questions you can ask a writer is, where do you get your ideas? Because there's no good answer for that. The answer is everywhere. But for this particular series, I was inspired by something very, very unique, and I can trace the seeds of the idea for this one because it's something quite different, something that I've not done before, and so talking about that will be interesting now that it's wrapped up. So I'm looking forward to that. Alright, now on to the next bit where I'm going to talk about a particular YouTube channel that has biased advice about traditional publishing, so this is going to be sweary for those who are watching. Now thankfully this channel doesn't have a lot of followers, and the person who does this, he seems to be completely unaware, or maybe he just doesn't realise that people actually have any kind of level of intelligence, because anytime he talks about traditional publishing, he's always putting it down, he's always lying about it, always making up all of these stories, and then he sort of says, oh, traditional publishing is awful, self-publishing is much better. Not that I'm biased, but oh, if you sign up with me, I've got a great service, they'll do all these things for you and I'll charge you lots of money for it, but it'll be totally worth it. And I'm thinking, does he really think people are that fucking stupid that they can't see through him and they don't realise he's just talking bollocks all of the time? I mean, surely some or most people must realise this. But let's get into some of the specifics of his most, fairly recent video that are just, it's quite embarrassing, to be honest. So one of the quotes that he actually said in a recent video is, "I'm not biased, but these are all the reasons why traditional publishing is shit." Really? Okay. Right, you're being a biased dickhead, clearly, but let's continue. And then he said, with self-publishing, you get all of the rewards if your book does well. True, that is absolutely true. You pay money out front, you pay for, editing, design, cover. We've talked about this before in other videos. I'm sure you're aware of this. I've said with traditional publishing, you don't give any money out for anything. All of the money flows to the author. You don't pay your agent, you don't pay your editor, you don't pay any of them. You sign with your agent, you sign with the publisher, they give the money to you in the form of advance. Once you've reached a certain level, then you start getting royalties once you've paid back that advance. That's earning out, which I've talked about. And yes, your agent takes a percentage, and yes, so does the publisher, because they have to print the book, the editing, the design, and all the rest of it. They need to get paid for the work that they do, and so does your agent. But the money still comes to you. You don't put your hand in your pocket for any of it. And with self-publishing, you pay for all of that up front. And this guy is basically sort of saying that, it's brilliant, you'll do really well, you'll get all of the money. Yes, but you're still going to have to recoup all of that money that you've just laid out. And if you sell 7 copies of your book to your nan, your mum, your next door neighbour and 3 of your friends, and you've shelled out, let's be conservative, £1,000, it's probably a lot more for everything to do it right and do it well. You can probably do it on the cheap, but then people will be able to see through it. And if it's not very well edited and the cover is shit, why would they want to buy it? And then you've got all the advertising you have to do for yourself and the marketing and the promotion. That's not free. So if you sell 7 copies, brilliant, that's going to recoup the money, is it? And his follow-up to that was sort of saying, well, you've sold your books, you're doing great, and then you can go out and do it again. So you've sold 7 copies, you're in the hole for several £100, dollars, and now you're going to shell out another $1,000 or a couple of $1,000 for another book to sell. And yes, everyone has to start somewhere. You have a small audience and you build and you grow, and that's just kind of the name of the game. Sometimes, yes, people get a hit on the first book and they have an established audience thereon and then so on, but it's not common. For most people, it's a case of you work really hard, you get an audience, and then you grow it gradually. But it costs money and it takes time and effort and a lot of skill and a lot of practice. If you want to look at some of the realities of self-publishing, go back and watch the video that I did with CAELYN Peters. I've put a link here below. She's a self-published author. She did everything right. She did all of the hard work. She put the time in. She worked with the editors, did all of this stuff, and she dedicated herself a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of effort, and it just did okay. And then, right, now let's do it again. So I'll put a link here if you haven't watched that. But that's kind of more of what it's actually like to be self-published for a lot of people. And so for this guy just to come out and say, oh yes, you get to keep all the money, you do, but you're not going to be selling millions of copies. It isn't the be-all and end-all. Now, I'm not saying traditional publishing is either, because I'm not biased, but the way this guy talks about it, it's just ridiculous. He just constantly shovels piles of shit on traditional publishing and saying, this is why it's awful. Oh, but don't worry, I've got the perfect solution. And it's just more bullshit that I can't believe anybody really believes. But then he has some brilliant advice, on traditional publishing. And he said, build an audience on the topic you're writing. This is the best way to become traditionally published. No, it isn't. And the next thing he said is, publishers are looking to see that you have an audience. People are going to buy your books. No, they're not. That isn't how it works. If, and there are rare few exceptions, you have a massive audience on social media, let's say 300,000 Instagram followers or BookTok followers, for an example. And based upon that, you then have a self-published book and you start putting it out and that does really well. Yeah, that's a possibility that some traditional publishers will then sort of say, right, now we perhaps look at traditionally publishing that book. But that isn't what they're actually looking for all of the time. If you look at the number of book deals that are made every year, they're announced in all of the trade press. I've talked about this before. There's a link down below, the bookseller, and a bunch of others that you say, who's published what book and when it's coming out and the deals and all the rest of it. Most of them, 99% I'm going to say, are not based upon that. They're based upon the work. They're based upon the book. They're not based upon, oh, because this person has 1 million followers on this particular social media channel, that's why we always take on books. No, that's not true. It's just more bullshit. And then we get to his final comment on this video, and this one is the real icing on the cake, the real cherry on top. And he said, and I'm quoting, ultimately, he's talking about traditional publishers, they're lazy. They don't want to do all of the hard work. So, number one, go fuck yourself. Number two, you've basically just said everybody in the entire industry is lazy and they don't want to do anything. They just want to sit around, wait for you to do the hard work, go around, pick up some books and then publish them. I've talked about this before. The main differences between self-publishing and traditional publishing, if you take away the money side, if you take away the idea of, paying for self-publishing versus traditional publishing, if you put that to one side, the main differences are, with self-publishing, you have absolute control over everything. Now that suits some people more than others. They get to decide who the editor is. They get to pick the cover artist and work very closely with all of these things, and they have complete veto over everything. With traditional publishing, I don't get to pick who my editor is. I don't get to pick who my designer is most of the time. I will get to work with someone. They'll present a number of ideas for the cover, so I do have some control. I do have interaction at every single stage. There again, with self-publishing, you've hired everybody. You decide everything. All aspects of the publishing process are yours to control, yours to decide, and also yours to schedule within reason. You can turn around a book much faster, a few months, versus traditional publishing, which is typically a year, and with things to do with COVID and delays and paper issues and all this kind of thing, it could even be slightly longer these days for when you sign a contract to when the book comes out. With self-publishing, yes, you can put out books much faster, every few months if you wanted to. The difference is, another difference is time. All of that, including the money, takes time. You have to work with all the people at all these stages, but then you have to do all of the work on top, whereas I'm handing off this work to other skilled people and letting them get on with it as a traditionally published author, giving myself more time to focus on other things, because there's some aspects that I'd rather a skilled person handled it and did it for me, then I'm not worrying about it. I don't have to learn all of these skills and try and muddle through, and I'm just not an expert on it. And they do it day in and day out in traditional publishing. And to say that they're lazy, to say that they don't care about their job, they don't have pride in their work, it's absolutely disgusting, to be honest. And yes, you know, in every job and in every industry, in every company, there's going to be lazy people, there's going to be people who move around, but most people in publishing, they love books, they love writing, they love stories, otherwise they wouldn't be there. Why would they do something they hate? They'd go and get another job. And so to kind of just blanket the whole industry and everybody in there and say that they're lazy is just appalling, and this person is horrifically biased. Don't subscribe to your channel. I'm not going to name him. If someone says, oh, you're going to name, no, because any direction, anything pointing towards him is bad. He's awful. Don't look for him. Don't listen to any kind of advice like this. And if you find other advice that you come across online on YouTube that says things and you think, I'm not sure, come and talk to me. Post it in the comments, post a link to the channel, I'll go and review it, I'll go and look at it and see if it's actually genuine. Now there are some good channels out there that talk about self-publishing, and the same with traditional publishing, but there aren't many of us who are traditionally published authors on YouTube for some reason. I don't really know why. I've spoken to Michelle Schusterman, we did a video not long ago. I've spoken to other people, I've got a couple of others planned that we're going to be doing for some more collaborations. So rather than trust the word of someone who's never been through the process, who's never done it, and is basically telling you that the only thing and the only way to get your books out and be successful is to self-publish, maybe ask someone who's actually been traditionally published. Come and talk to me, come and talk to some of the others, send me an email if you don't want to post a comment, get in touch with me, and we'll see what we can do to actually get to the truth of what it's actually all about. So slightly ranty, slightly mixed bag today, but that's all I'm going to talk about for today. But I'll be back very soon with another video.